This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Because that's what
This
they do.
is the Rules and
think
Government Relations Subcommittee of the City Council. We have a quorum here, that's great. It's summertime and we've had some difficulty getting together, but here we are, that's wonderful. We have 3 items on the agenda, but first we have the minutes of previous meetings. And I would like.
Those are in process, I do not have
They're
them.
in
this
process.
evening. Yep, because I'm doing those as well as finance, so I have a lot to catch up on with finance, so
I just wanted
unfortunately,
to be clear of the dates. We're missing
last 3.
April 10, April 24, May 16, and it is the last
Last 3,
meeting.
yep.
The June 13 meeting was canceled.
Mhm.
Who's that? I didn't recognize the guy with the glasses. Hey, how you doing? Just counting.
Yeah,
1,
we
2,
have a full
3,
council
4,
quorum.
5. Now we have a full council quorum. Okay, so that means that any discussion that is to take place will take place among committee members, and anyone who is not a committee member, as long as we have a quorum in the room, will be asked to speak before we begin anything. So we won't be taking up information after we begin. Okay. That being said, we're working on the minutes.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I have requests from 2 people to go first. I know RCV is ranked choice voting is a longer topic. I've had a request from Councilor Denham that I'd like to be able to honor to go first, but I see the hand of one of our members.
Yes,
Please.
because I seen the agenda, I didn't see that we have the full speak time, and because we do have a quorum of the full council, we'll make a motion to suspend the rules of the agenda, and where we can add the public speak time, and
Public
the 2
speak.
councilors can use the public speak time to talk to their committee.
That's a good point. Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. That's great. So that being said, I would like to have up to 3 minutes for anyone to speak on any subject, including the subjects that are on the agenda today. Is there anyone who'd like to speak?
Do you want to go?
You teach, you want
Or-
to?
No, go ahead, you requested, please.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, I know that I've had this, my topic on the agenda. I feel like I should time myself. And I've started going through that. I think that there has been some question about that. In terms of why, what's the purpose, what are we doing? And really, it's an opportunity to review them. I think just from going through and seeing some things at glance, there's been some questions of those. There are things that I think I might like to bring up or change, but also if the committee isn't committed to that or wants to do that, then I don't want to spend a lot of time kind of bringing these things to the attention if this is something that y'all don't want to engage in. So I think that's kind of my ask is, and I know that I can bring those things forward, but I don't want to spend a lot of time going through talking about these concerns if this is something that y'all don't want to engage in anyway. So that's just where I'm coming from. And I can give an example of that. I can't remember what number it is off the top of my head, but part of what council has the opportunity of saying is yes, no, pass, or abstain, right? I think something that I would like to be able to see in that is, as an example, would be hypothetically being able to say present, right? Because I think present is an indication that there are things within this process or within this language that I agree with, but I actually don't agree with everything. And so by passing, it feels like that's a no. And with a present, it gives us more of an opportunity as individuals to say, actually, there's things within this that I agree with, but I don't support the entire thing. And I don't think that that type of space is provided within the rules to be able to do such thing. I also think that there's a couple of other process things that I think that that I would like to see. But again, this is just a public speak thing. But you know, I'm committed to doing this, but I would like some sort of commitment also for the committee to be able to say, yeah, this is something that we're willing to look at, because I don't want to waste anybody's time. And I also don't want to bring things up that are of concern to me and I have to express myself and everyone else is just like, no. So I just don't think that's a good use of city time or anyone else's time.
Thank you. We will not respond directly to anyone's individual comments. We will, of course, discuss the matter at the committee, and you're welcome to stay for that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I see Councilor Owen. Zarek,
Thank you for recognizing me. How much time do I have to speak?
3 minutes.
Okay,
up
thank
to.
you. It's really brief. I'm just here to ask the committee to consider a positive recommendation, obviously with any changes as recommended by the committee, the recommended change to Rule 5C that myself and Councilor Gomez had submitted. Basically, for a while, and this had come up in past terms, the concern is that the way that new business is introduced, I think people attending the meeting potentially, certainly on the public side and even potentially municipal stakeholders may not fully understand what's being introduced because a lot of times we just read off the title of an item. And I think that certainly for the public gathered who may have not had time to read the full agenda, it might be helpful, similarly to what we do with financial items for consideration, that we at least can include a more full-throated description of the item to be considered. I had sent to the committee members for review and discussion a template that's very similar based off of what we do for appropriations. That basically is kind of a who, what, why, where, when. So basically reading it through the title of the item to be considered, potentially who sponsored it, and kind of a why, kind of a brief description, requesting that an ordinance to consider such and such and such, that would change the zoning for this kind of residential zone to allow two-family houses, duplexes by right or something like that. I think that way the public gets a little bit more of an understanding as it's read into the record. It's similar to what other councils and bodies do with the first reading. I think it would be helpful both for visibility and transparency. So thank you for considering that tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will point out that Dan Gilbert is our representative, so he will be representative regarding an advisor as to ranked choice voting. So he will be recognized during that part of the discussion. That being said, I don't see anyone else. That closes public speak. Shall we jump in on the issue of reviewing all our rules, just to get to that quickly? I would be happy to say a few words on the subject and entertain any discussion. I think it's important that we stay abreast of all the rules, stay up to date with all the rules, and that anyone feel that they can bring forth any rule change at any point in the process. What I kind of heard before, and I'm not sure, maybe now that's not the case, but it sounded like a full review of the entire rules. Give me the book and we're going to review every one by one. I know we do that as a regular procedure and practice with the charter. I think there's a difference between the charter and the rules. The rules are something local that we can change. The charter, and our reason for reviewing the charter, is that it has to go before the legislature. And that's a legislative act, and that takes a lot of effort and time. And I think the hope is that if we're reviewing the entire charter, we'll find multiple points that we want to address for the situation, and that they can be all submitted to the legislature, hopefully in a simultaneous fashion. And that gives the rationale for every number of years to go ahead and do a review. I don't personally feel the urgency to go ahead and look at all of them, although I'm certainly open to doing whatever the group feels for a recommendation to the full council. I think that anyone should feel free to bring forth any issue or any change. And the ones that were mentioned earlier today, I think it would be great to bring forth on an individual basis. And I think we'd all be very comfortable in giving them a full discussion and a full hearing. But those are my thoughts on the subject. Is there anyone else that would care to join in?
I would have no issue at all. If Councillor Dunham had wanted rules reviewed, I would encourage her to bring them forward as anybody. Because were we to say right now that something's not antiquated or needs to change, or
Right.
it's a living thing almost. It's being altered from time to time. So absolutely, I would encourage that. I'm not pleased to hear that she is of a frame of mind to be discouraged to do so. In a sense, to be hesitant to do so, let's say. Because I would think that would be something that would just be brought up. If that's a concern, then it's a concern of all of us, and we should
Right.
discuss it, because it affects all of us.
So if I hear you correctly, you would say bring forth any change on any particular rule, and that would be welcomed and for discussion.
That's what we're here for. That's rules and government relations. That's the name of our committee.
That's what we're here for. So, Councilor Gomez?
I agree with it that we should, and I encourage the council to review our rules more periodically. But at the same time, I have to add that I probably have to blame myself too. We have a bunch of rules. Why we have a bunch of rules is because we follow Robert rules in our full council meetings, including here too, right? And the book of Robert rules probably is like maybe 1,000 pages with rules, and we follow those rules. So probably it is our job to try to include that information more in our own rules. They will be more accessible for the councilors and for the public to read it and understand it, because we had the rules. And I agree, I think we should review the rules all the time based on the needs of the council and the community. But I think we should start with bringing a small version of Robert rules and give it to all the councilors and have it accessible for everybody, because we have those rules that your suggestion was part of it. Based on Robert rules, we can say present instead of abstaining or saying no, yes, or abstaining, right? It's Robert rules, and because Robert rules is not part of our package, maybe that's why can create a lot of controversial or misunderstanding, but they're there. And I think that should be part of our job to bring that document to the council. Like, hey, you have questions, right here, the document.
There's a shorter version
It's a shorter
of that
version,
that
but
I
it's
have that's very good, yeah.
But the real one is like.
The bridge version is only about 100 pages, 60 pages, but it's a good read. Wow.
But I agree, I think we should review it. I don't have any issues reviewing it.
So what I hear you saying is that certainly reviewing the various rules, anything that's brought to us, I'm thinking in the format that Councilor Zaret had brought forward. This is a change, this is what I'd like to do. that we would seriously consider, if I hear you correctly on that. And that in addition to that, maybe even some of those issues would be dealt with originally by reviewing Robert's rules, and in either a small packet or a longer packet. I don't know is there a charge for the longer packet, just in case somebody wants to dig into it?
I can do it.
Yeah, the longer packet, I think, has a fee to it, but certainly the smaller packets and the annotated version, the 60-page version
It's a
is
few versions.
easy. That I think could be great.
Yeah,
And I
there's a
think I
Robert's
would-
Rules for Dummies too, which
Yeah,
is,
it's a book.
I would definitely
Let's
recommend.
not use that one.
Yeah. Use a bunch of books, but not that. But
So I think.
I'll do my homework to find out.
Yeah, that would be something I would
Consensus,
definitely
nice
want
copy
to
of that.
recommend to the rest of the council, and would be prepared to move that forward if you'd like to entertain a motion, or to wait till a subsequent meeting, which,
We can wait.
is there anything else on the subject?
Can I make one last
That
comment?
being said, unfortunately, someone had recommended that we no longer, as a quorum, talk about things, so that's the way it goes. Next subject. Ranked choice voting. Anybody have a preference for ranked choice voting or the template for opening things up? Let's take the template first. Just quickly, I think Councilor Zaret's brought forth the template. He didn't actually read it. It says things like state the nature of the request, the amend, the ordinance, the rule, whatever, the name of the proposal, add the city ordinance, to make stop signs orange. This is example. And he says the date submitted and the sponsors and the stakeholders, anyone who may be interested in the subject, would be described, plus a summary of the proposal. I'm reading this mainly for the public. This should be a concise summary of the matter to be considered. Example of proposal change of traffic rules in order section 10 to require that all stop signs in the city be changed to orange dodecahedrons. Okay. So, if it wasn't covered by Councilor Zaret earlier, I've covered it. Anytime we can have transparency, I think that's our goal. To be able to have the public understand what's on the agenda. I know several times I've looked at the agenda and had to take like triple takes because that's what we're talking about. It seems so short, so simply defined that it isn't telling us anything. We're going to review a rule. Now, I'm not making criticism of any particular way, but I think the more we can be descriptive of it, and I think we have an obligation to inform the clerk of the council when she prepares or he prepares the agenda to have that information there. So I don't have any specific questions on this.
Okay.
I see Councilor Gomez. I would like to recognize the councilors first, if I may.
Yep.
Yeah, let me maybe clarify a little bit more about the idea of bringing this forward. And I think Councilor Sarver was pretty clear, but I want to add a few more things, right? And I think it's important, especially tonight. Why? Because we have six councilors here, right? And that is the main reason we sat down and tried to do something like this. We have 6 councilors, but only 3 are going to be allowed to talk tonight. So because of that, what we're looking for in the rule is when a council introduces something, we want to be more specific about what you're introducing and be more clear about your introduction letter, right? Because if tonight was one of those days that we didn't have a lot of information and we do our minimum job to find out exactly what we're talking about, the person who introduced it is not allowed to talk, even if the council will be here, right? Because that reason, and not to violate open meeting law. The main reason is like yes, the template is for the first reading of the council, like something, just a sentence. Basically, we're moving this to finance because finance is easy because they have their own rules. We have sent something to public safety. We're moving this to public safety because whatever, this is what I need. Should be simple. That's why the sample is kind of simple. But the introduction letter should be more specific because in case we have the full quorum here, how are we gonna find out, right? So because of that reason, the council who is going to introduce a new item should be more specific in the cover letter.
So, the cover letter, if I may, and I apologize for not mentioning that sooner, the cover letter covers the subject matter in the single paragraph, is my understanding. A paragraph, okay, and then the public can better understand what the subject is. The press can better understand what the subject matter is. If anyone's interested, they can get involved at that point in the process, as opposed to having there be a subcommittee discussion and maybe two subcommittee discussions. It's not labeled on the subcommittee agenda, and then it goes to the full council. Now, all of a sudden, everybody says, well, look, I wanna come in on this subject. And a lot of the discussion has been formulated. I haven't heard from,
Yeah, just 1 second, because
Please continue.
I think, because I don't read minds, but probably this is our city clerk concerns at the clerk of the council, is if Barbara receives something like this, to read it for the first reading is long, right? And now if we introduce in 20 things, so we're gonna have probably 10 pages of reading for the first time, so maybe that's your concern. To avoid that, that's what should be a sentence, just we're moving this because whatever, instead of bringing something super long to read it for the first reading. I think that's gonna be a lot for the agenda too. That's my opinion. Before,
Councilor Toral?
Well, I'd like to hear what,
Okay,
So-
I would love to hear from our council clerk on this subject. And since you're not a member of the council, you can talk tonight.
So I guess, so the agenda, when you get it, I mean, I try to fit it onto one line. I mean, I was maybe there could be a form created like we do for supplementals and interdepartmentals, that is what, no matter what you're introducing, everything would have like a set, it would be an ordinance, traffic, a specific form, and I could work on that.
Okay.
But I don't think having and that could be done as like a first reading when you get a new ordinance. But I don't think that the whole thing has to be written onto the agenda. The agenda should be just, your outline
Yes,
of what
correct.
you're doing. But I mean, you could set up something that say that you would do a first reading when an ordinance proposal first comes forward, maybe based like Tom does when he does his first readings. He just reads off the paper. But to have it would make making the agenda a lot more work, and it would be a lot longer. I mean, especially because we attach everything onto the agenda. I mean, I don't really want to start having to drag information out of counselors at the last minute because it's too much work sometimes just putting it together. So I think the agenda is kind of just an outline, but maybe we could make some sort of a form
I like
I
it.
guess
that would
my-
accompany any other information that you have, but it would be just a one page,
Yeah.
This is
standardized general form.
general
Yeah.
form, like a template that you would fill out and accompany other things.
So you would see the template as accompanying the agenda note?
Yeah.
So page 1 would have the note that talks about what the situation is,
That would be the form.
what the proposal is, but then within the packet, there would be,
No,
The
the form would be
template.
part of, it would be just like an appropriation now.
Yeah.
right, so it would be an item within the packet.
Right.
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 That would be a good way of
I
covering
mean,
it.
I can't
think.
imagine trying to make up an agenda, especially how last minute these agendas have been lately, and having to deal with getting descriptions, and it would be like pages long. I mean, the agenda should be just, this is what, these are the items, but there's accompanying information. But I mean, I like the idea of some sort of a template, an ordinance template.
Yeah.
Because I get things in all different manners, and it's not.
This way you'll have consistency and everything has to be
Yeah.
in the same.
I don't even know if you really need a rule for that.
Did you have
Just to be a
copy, did you have
process.
a copy of this?
It's for the future of the council, just to have something in writing.
Did you have a copy of this?
I can
Just
send it
as
to you.
something, I would love to see,
I mean, we could just play around with it a little
the
bit.
clerk look
See
at
what-
it and maybe,
I mean, I
if
think it
you're
would be
willing,
helpful for
come up with a
counselors bringing
proposal.
forward things even
Yeah.
to kind of,
For you too.
you know.
Yeah, for all of us, yeah, the public, each counselor, for you.
But like I say, sometimes I get things and they're not, you know, there's not too much information, so
Right.
this is gonna help me.
May help flesh it out, yeah. Did you want to bring that forward at perhaps our next meeting to be able to discuss what your thoughts are
Well,
on the
I'll
subject?
just play around with it a little bit and I can send it to, you
That'd be
can,
great.
you can just look at it.
Mhm.
I mean, you two aren't, because this was your idea.
That'd be great.
And maybe I'll be totally way off and maybe, you know, it might be a place to start.
You will never be off.
I was gonna say, that's doubtful.
Well, I mean, I might even like take the transfer
Yeah.
form without all the signatures and
signatures,
just
yeah.
kind of follow it, something similar. You know, because like what I've said, when we started out with this, we just made everything up.
Mhm.
And we did actually have one for ordinances, but it was just a big place where you just write it,
Mm.
so.
Mhm.
Anyway,
So we're gonna leave it in Barbara's hands and await further discussion on the subject. Any other thoughts or discussion? Closes that item for the evening. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Zares, for proposal, and Councilor Gomez, for co-sponsoring. On to ranked choice voting, multiple winner ranked choice voting. We've had many meetings on the subject. We've put together, I think, a good packet. Our consultant has summarized the packet into I was gonna say a shortened version, but actually the material, the proposal that we would submit is shortened. I do have certain concerns about some of it, and I had a conversation today with Councilor Carey, who is now our state representative Carey, about the matter. And just to share, it was his opinion that in order to get through the legislature, that the matter come back to the city after the legislature is done with it for a vote. And I think I noticed in the packet that was included as one of the letters from the 20th, actually dated Tuesday, where Councilor Carey reiterates the subject. I hadn't seen this until afterwards, but yeah, he hadn't changed his mind since then. And that may be the best path forward for approval. I also had some issues and thoughts about what we were charged with originally. And the original vote had the subject matter of, it was not required. It was a non-binding resolution brought before the city, and it passed strongly. So I think we do have kind of an obligation, if this kind of makes sense, any sense at all, to give it a fair shake and bring it forward to the legislature. However, when I looked at the wording of the measure, it used the word explore the possibility. That was what the ballot question said, explore the possibility of this. And when you go to the dictionary and you look up explore, it comes up with to think about, to talk about, to study something, or experience it, in order to find out more about it. Explore the possibility. doesn't say, go ahead and do this, or this is what we want you to do. Look at it and submit a proposal to the legislature. So I think the public deserves the right to review this again personally, and that's my own personal thoughts on the matter. So I would want to adjust at least one of the, or recommend we adjust one of the items here, and I think it's section 4 of the proposal, which calls for voters accepted as section 2 by voting in favor of a citywide ballot question. We did vote on a non-binding citywide ballot question. I wonder if that should be, if we should substitute the language that says the matter will be voted on at the next city election. So, those are my thoughts. Any of the other counselors have thoughts on that matter with regard to coming back and having this be something that the people will decide? Okay, then I guess I would come up with some language to substitute for section 4. And I look to Dan for our language expert here. Very good at coming up with language. Is there something about so many days before the election that we need to put in to that?
That's already in section 5.
In section 5.
Yes.
Section 1 and 3 should not be implemented for an election that may occur within 45 days after the passage of this act. That would be the legislature act, or that would be, that assumes that it would go right into effect, but we're gonna have a vote subsequent to it, so that really doesn't help us.
So
As to when, let's say this comes back, let's say the legislature zips through it, comes back in the middle of October and says, yeah, go ahead and do this. We're obviously not gonna hold, this isn't gonna go onto the ballot for this election. It could go on to the next city election. So do we need some language that references the next city election? Dan, please.
So we have a previous version, so that language already exists.
Okay.
I can read it if you like.
Please do.
So section 4 says section 2 shall be placed on the ballot for acceptance by the voters of the city of Easthampton at the next city election. The city solicitor shall prepare and include a summary of the question to be printed on the ballot. And then a very, very slightly altered section 5 says sections 1 and 3 shall take effect upon acceptance by the voters of section 2 pursuant to this act, but shall not be implemented for an election that may occur within 45 days after approval of any such ballot question. So it's very similar to what we have here, except instead of it's the passage of the act, it's the approval of the question.
I can't see the legislature being concerned about that in any way or having questions about
No, what this actually, this mirrors the previous
the previous one,
bill.
which was one of Representative Carey's recommendations, is mirror it as much as you can. So I would like to recommend that we make the changes that we just discussed with Dan. Any other thoughts on the subject? I'll entertain a motion to make those changes to sections 4 and sections 5.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to make the changes substituting what Dan has just read into sections 4 and sections 5 of the Easthampton Home Rule petition to be submitted to the legislature. Given that we can easily make those changes to the document, when is the next time we have for a deadline to get?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday is our deadline to get on to the next
Day.
meeting. Thursday, during the day. And hopefully we could do something sooner. I would like to see this go before the full council as soon as possible.
Cover letter and
I'm sure
then
we
can
all-
update that.
can update this.
You can update
10 seconds.
that.
Send it out before the end of the meeting.
If you can update that, are there any other thoughts or changes about the subject matter?
There was a motion and a second.
No.
There was a motion and a
That was,
second.
we didn't get, I
We
thought.
didn't vote.
I apologize. Then what, we shall vote on substitutions for sections 4 and sections 5 to be recommended to the council as described.
We already made the motion.
I hear aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. Motion passes. That's how we'll proceed, and we'll have this.
Already updated.
Great, we'll send it to everybody.
Here's my copy.
Send it to
Give me a
everybody.
printer.
And of course, this is subject to further discussion at the full council level, should there be anyone who has concerns or issues, and I'm sure there are many, many people who would love to just see it go into effect. And I acknowledge that, and I've acknowledged that there are many people who voted for us to explore the subject. So that being said, I want to give it the best chance to pass, as I'm sure this whole group does. We've passed on that motion. No other subjects on ranked choice voting, it looks like. My intent is to bring it forward to Barb. Any other discussion or thoughts or by any of the counselors on the committee before we close up? Dan, please.
With the revision, and I'm just wanting to clarify, was that to send it to the city council, or was that to revise it and bring it back to this?
We don't have the authority to send it to the city, to the legislature.
No,
And it's not to revise it and bring it back. I think our
To the
intent was
council.
to bring it forward to the council
The next
as soon as possible, rather than have another meeting on the subject.
Thank you, I got it.
You just need a cover.
Yeah, cover. We'll
Yep.
get you that. You'll get me this, and we'll cover. If you want to take a crack at it, feel free to. I'm happy to. Look who writes this. And they're very thorough, I will say, on lots of issues. I wish you would consider having a more active role in our city in some way. But that being said, I see no other issues on the agenda, no other items for discussion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.